Remember, even just saying over breakfast in a fairly casual conversation, the new leaders, I go, they've come out as teachers, and there's an assumption that because they can stand in front of a group and talk, that they're leaders and that they know how to lead. And I said it's not true. And then they get put into a leadership position, and there's no real effective leadership development. What it is just that, they've been teaching for 10 years so they can lead. And I said that's not the case, and they have to go through a process of an identity upgrade, and they're both just going, what? Hang on, stop, what? I've never heard of that before, but that's great.
Yeah, that's related to this concept around the difference between positional leadership and authentic leadership, and that people often think that leadership is a senior position. It's a position. It's a title. And in fact, real leadership is actually not that. It helps if you have some authority as a senior position, but having authority because of your senior position does not necessarily make you a leader. You might have authority to make decisions. You might have power, positional power in the hierarchy of things. You might be someone's boss, but that's not the same as being a leader. Mm-hmm. And real authentic leadership is actually coming from, the way we like to depict it is positional leadership is top down. The higher you are in the organization, the higher your position, so to speak, the more someone says you are a leader. When in fact, real authentic leadership is bottom up, that it actually arises out of the collective. So as we spoke about before, Graham, that real leadership is a journey into authenticity. What is it? And what does that actually mean? What does it mean to actually be the author of your story, the author of your own life, the author of how your journey is unfolding? And if we contrast that between these two things around positional versus authentic, positional leadership is formal, it's title-based, and it's based on a hierarchy. Where are you in the position? Whereas real authentic leadership is not that. It's a personal response to a calling that you feel you have to respond to. Now, what is that? It's going to actually be based on the collective. It's because you're part of a group. You're part of a collective identity. And there's something that's bothering the group. There's something bothering you at an existential level, of which you become one of those that gets to see what's possible, how you can transcend this particular issue that the group is feeling. And in normal parlance, that's called vision. You get to see, you have a vision of possibility of what could be. And because you can see it, you start to express it. And when you start to express it, people start mobilizing behind you because that's already there. It's already there in their psyche. But you feel, a lot of the people, as you know, Graham, we talk to real leaders, real authentic leaders, and many times they don't want to do what they're doing. They don't want to do that job of having to lead change, getting all the stresses, being personally attacked, etc. But they can't not do it because it has to do with exactly what you're saying. It has to do with their identity. It's who they are, is what the group is. And the collective identity of the group is also part of their own personal psyche. So there's a personal response. They have a calling that they feel they must respond to. So while positional leadership is based on a formal authority, authentic leadership is really based on relationships, connections. It's about the fact that we're connected together as a group, as a tribe, as a community, and we need to stand up for ourselves. And it also has to do with influence. These are very highly influential relationships. You know, and power-based positional leadership can be very much ego-based. It's all about me and my power or whatever it might be, whereas really authentic leadership is more about an identity that is us, that is a we, that is a collective. And real authentic leadership rises up to make a difference to other people because they have to, because what's happening to the group is happening to them and vice versa. So it's not top down, it's bottom up. And it's not about your job or your role, or it's not just about the function you're there to do. It's about a purpose or a mission that you have, a calling in your life. And real leadership, and that's why we're saying real leadership is a calling, it's a journey, it's a calling to take the journey. As Joseph Campbell talks about, the hero's journey, a journey into authenticity.
I think it's interesting that what you've just said about authentic leadership and the difference between that and positional leadership is because the authentic leader is coming from that relating as part of the group and the connection that they have. To me, they don't seem to have that same sense of isolation that sometimes the positional leader gets, especially a new positional leader. So what happens is the new positional leader suddenly, if they're in the same school in particular, all of their relationships with their peers and colleagues and even with their students change when they go into leadership. And suddenly their relationships change. And then they start to feel isolated. And then we start to have well-being issues for a lot of them. And their identity hasn't changed with it. Whereas the authentic leader who's leading because they're so connected to the group and part of the group and they're doing what they think is in the best interest of the group, they don't get that sense of isolation and they don't get the conflict that they would have with the group, and their identity just expands. Whereas there seems to be a difference in the positional where the positional leader will tend to defend themselves a little by putting some sort of character around themselves, whatever that might be. It might be, some people might perceive it as arrogance. And there's a number of different things that can come out. But in a way, to me, that's them trying to protect themselves as they were. Whereas the authentic leader has just become an extension of who they already were anyway. And they're expressing that in a different way, but they don't feel or have that deep-seated need to protect themselves. They're just being who they are.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and that's exactly right. Because a real authentic leader, it's not about them; it's their ego is not attached to it. So power is not a big issue, right? They're happy to share power because it's about the outcome for us that we're after. And this is why, servant leadership, service-based leadership, or the leader being the servant of those, that it's not, one leads and the others follow. It works quite the opposite, right? And in many ways, the leader is being guided by the needs of the people, and it's just that they're able to see a vision of possibility and articulate that back to the people. And you're right; therefore, they're not isolated. They don't feel lonely at all. They're very connected. They're in constant dialogue, and they're often feeling very. At the end of the day, while it's not easy. They're going to have hard work, obviously, yeah. But at the end of the day, many of them are very, very grateful for having the opportunity to serve, for being the one that can help and make a difference. And that is such a different psychology.